why is 0 to the 0th power equals 1 so controversial? I just heard some people saying it was controversial, and I was just wondering why people debate about this. Because the property, zero exponent property, just states that anything that's raised to the power of 0 will always be 1. So, how is this debated? Here is my take on this. First, I would like to tell you that 0 to the 0th power is not equal to 1. And in fact, I'm also not going to tell you 0 to the 0th power is undefined. No, none of that. I'm going to tell you, this is my response. 0 to the 0th power has no agreement. This is the best response, not answer though. This is the best response that I can give you for 0 to the 0th power, which is also pretty bad because you still don't know what it is, right? For example, if I want to tell you what 1 divided by 0, that is undefined. I can firmly tell you that's the answer. But for this, I will only say 0 to the 0th power has no agreement. And that's why this right here is so controversial. I'm going to present the cases why this is the situation. The second thing I want to tell you before we do that is that I'm not going to talk about any calculus related topics here. So no limit, no indeterminate forms, none of that in this video, because we'll just be looking at 0 to the 0th power as an arithmetic question. Just like 2 to the 3rd power. You are not going to do calculus with 2 to the 3rd power, right? Maybe you could. If you know how to do it, let me know. But anyways, let me present a case that why people say anything raised to the 0th power is equal to 1, such as 2 to the 0th power is equal to 1. But why though? The key right here is perhaps you can observe some pattern first. If you look at 2 to the 3rd power, here's the deal. If the exponent is a positive whole number, this tells you how many times we have to write down the base and then multiply them. So write down the 2 3 times, multiply them, we get 8. And we can do the same thing for 2 to the 2nd power. 2 times 2, get 4. If you have 2 to the 1st power, same thing, it's just 2. Done. But you see, this definition is not going to work if you have 0 exponent. If you want to say, write down 2 0 times, that means this right here will be the answer. Blank. Of course, you never leave blank in a math question, never. You have to write something about it. You can say like undefined or it has no solution, something like that. Don't box it though, that doesn't work. But in fact, we do have an answer for this right here. How do we figure out? The key is to figure out a pattern. Look, 3, 2, 1, 0. On the right hand side, to go from 8 to 4, we can look at this as dividing by 2. Continue. 4 divided by 2, that gives us a 2. And we can do the same thing. 2 divided by 2 is legitimate, and we know that it's equal to 1. Therefore, we define 2 to the 0th power to be 1. And this reasoning works for any number as long as the base is not 0. You can have 17 to the 0th power, that will also give you 1 by doing the same thing. Now, the problem is that what if the base happens to be 0? Let's try. If we have 0 to the 3rd power, yes, positive whole number, write down this many times. So 0 times 0 times 0, we get 0. Continue, 0 square, 0 times 0, 0. 0 to the 1st, works okay, 0. Now, it looks like all the results, as long as the base is equal to 0, all the results are just 0, right? But what if the base is 0 and the power is also equal to 0? If you establish a fact or result earlier, anytime we have base being equal to 0 to a power, the result is 0, then in this case, 0 to the 0th power should be 0. That's pretty nice, right? Just always write down 0, just draw a bunch of circles, like, why not? But is this correct? Because if you write this down, it contradicts with what we just said earlier. Anything raised to the zeroth power is equal to 1, right? However, if you take a look at what we did earlier, from here to here, we divided by 2. Can we do the same thing to go from here to here? Yes, 3, 2, 1, 0. 0, do what? Will give you 0. Can we really say that is the same as dividing by 0? No. We can never divide it by 0. That I know. 1 divided by 0 is undefined. Just like 0 divided by 0 is undefined. So we cannot use this to argue this result or pattern anymore. Cannot say do not put down divided by 0 anymore like that. Doesn't work. So what do you say though? When we have 0 to the zeroth power, are we just going to take this right here, so the answer is equal to 1? Or are we going to say 0 to the zeroth power because the base is 0? So reach, like when we have a power, the result just be 0. I think this is perhaps the first step that we run into. Is like, oh, okay, we start to see some arguments or controversies right here, and I think that's what the starting of making this controversial.